On the 1st of October, Native Instruments released the 13th installment of Complete Collection. It brings a lot of new libraries and even some new tools, and it's been discussed all over the social media. However, I didn't see coverage of some not so obvious changes that happened along the way. I'm Alex, and today we will be talking about what is included and what is not included in Complete 13, what to take into account if you are not planning on getting Complete, and how to save up to $500 while getting Complete Ultimate Collector's Edition. By the way, half a year ago I made a 3-series beginner's guide to Native Instruments, where this universe of sounds and tools was put into some understandable and clear structure, so if you didn't watch it, I'll put a link here. And now let's talk about what was added and what was not added to Complete 13. The good news is that almost everything that was released after Complete 12 is included in Complete 13. The only exception here is Certified Gold Machine Expansion that was released in September 2020, and everything else is here. Let's take a little closer look at what was added exactly in each category of Complete. Super 8 is added to Synth category. 4 libraries including the latest release Birchwick Drums is added to Play series. Rome Reverb is now included in Effects. Noir is now added to Keys group. Guitar Rig 5 is replaced with Guitar Rig 6, and 2 more guitar libraries are added to Guitar group now. There is a massive addition to strings with Cremona Quartet. It's 4 strings instruments including 2 violins, 1 viola and 1 cello. And note that these libraries are really huge, so each sizes in 20+ gigabytes, so if you plan to get them, prepare the space beforehand. Finally, Vocal group is a part of Complete now with Mysteria and Farlight. Archis, Mallet Flux and Straylight are added to Cinematic group. Expansion section has 16 expansions for Machine, 6 expansions for Massive X and 1 expansion for Massive. And now let's talk about what is not included in Complete 13. Last time I showed this picture with expansions that were released before Complete 12 and were not included in Complete 12. And I said chances are they will not be included in Complete 13 as well. So how wrong I was? Well, out of these 11 expansions, only 2 are now part of Complete 13. It was a surprise at that time that Spectrum Quake, one of 3 expansions for Massive, was not included in Complete 12, while others 2 were. And there's absolutely no logic behind this decision, so I believe it was some kind of a technical issue which is now fixed. And another expansion that is now included in Complete 13 is Basement Era, and that makes 9 other expansions remain homeless, and they are Dark Pressure, Resonant Blaze, Paradise Ruins, Prospect Haze, Black Ark, Radiant Horizon, Crystal Daggers, Electric Wise and Helios Ray. And since it is 2 years before Natives will release the Complete 14, these expansions are pretty much safe to buy if you plan to get Complete 13 and don't want duplicated licenses. And by the way, I've made an updated picture of Complete Universe which looks like this, and it is available in a larger scale via a link in the description, so if you are interested, Complete 12 picture is also available. I'll put a link on that too. But what if you don't plan to get Complete 13? In this case, I want to share with you some not so obvious things to take into account. Number 1. If you want to get the new Guitar Rig 6 as an upgrade, make sure you are upgrading from Guitar Rig 4, Guitar Rig 5, Complete Audio 6 Collection or Complete Elements, because upgrades only from these versions are now possible. If you have an older version of Guitar Rig, you'll need to buy a full version. Number 2. Coming back to Guitar Rig. If you plan to get a Ramfire, a Reflector or Tractors 12, forget about it, because from now on these effects are bundled with Guitar Rig 6 and are no longer sold separately. And number 3. And this is great news for those who wanted to get some effects from Natives. There are big changes in this section now. Solid Mix series, Premium Tube series, Reverb Classics and Vintage compressors are now all bundles only, which means you cannot buy individual items from them. Good news is that the regular price of these bundles is now permanently 50% off, and also there are upgrading options available. And that's not all. Transit Master's price is also halved, Supercharger GT and Replica XT are 30% down, and upgrades costs for minor versions for these two are also reduced. And now let's talk a little bit about financial side of Complete 13. And the pricing policy is exactly the same as it was with Complete 12. $199 for Select, $599 for Complete, $11.99 for Complete Ultimate, and $15.99 for Complete Ultimate Collector's Edition. But because these tiers now have a little bit different contents, it's interesting to take a look at the value side of the story, especially comparing it with Complete 12. And I can say that things got a little bit better here, but still the upgrade cost of Collector's Edition looks unbalanced. This should be fixed by either reducing the upgrade price down to $400 or by adding more value to Collector's Edition. There's also one more option there that we can use in our favor, and we will talk about that in a minute. Speaking of upgrades, I'm actually attacking this pricing policy for a good reason. And we basically have several upgrade options, but they differ dramatically. The first group of options is vertical upgrades, which means upgrading between tiers within the same Complete release. And you can upgrade from Select to Complete, from Complete to Complete Ultimate, and from Complete Ultimate to Complete Ultimate Collector's Edition. I will skip Complete Select here just to save space, but in two cases of 3, the upgrade price is the same as the price difference between the tiers. However, when it comes to upgrading from Complete Ultimate to the next tier, this would cost you $5.99, while the price difference between these tiers is $3.99. So that means if you buy Collector's Edition straight away, you will save $200 comparing to upgrades, which makes this path financially not very reasonable. The second group is basically updates, which means moving to the next release of Complete within the same tier. The higher the tier, the higher the price, and you can update Complete for $1.99, Complete Ultimate for $3.99, and Complete Ultimate Collector's Edition for $4.99. Cool, but there's the third group of options, and let's call it crossgrades, because this option allows you to do update and upgrade at the same time. For example, you can crossgrade from Complete 12 to Complete 13 Ultimate, or from Complete 12 Ultimate to Complete 13 Ultimate Collector's Edition for $5.99 each. But wait a second, does that mean that upgrade and crossgrade prices are the same? Yes, and that makes update-upgrade path rather meaningless, because if you ever plan to upgrade, it is better to make a crossgrade instead. Now take a look at this one. If the same pricing scheme remains effective for Complete 14, there are 3 strategic options of how to get the Collector's Edition tier. And I'm describing these scenarios here now simply because once you get yourself Complete Ultimate Collector's Edition, you have no other options than just to update it further for $4.99. And option number 1 is buy or upgrade to Complete Ultimate, upgrade to Complete Ultimate Collector's Edition, and then update to Complete 14. This is the most expensive option that will cost around $2,300 in total, and I suggest you never ever do that. Option number 2, buy Complete Ultimate Collector's Edition straight away and update it later to Complete 14, and this option costs around $2,100 in total. And option number 3, buy or upgrade to Complete Ultimate and cross-grade it to Complete 14, and this option costs around $1,800 in total. Price difference between option number 3 and option number 1 is $500, and this is basically what Natives forces us to do by not giving an option of upgrading Complete Ultimate to the next tier for $3.99. That's it for now, and thanks for watching. And if you have any questions or comments, leave them below, and if you like the video, please give us some likes and subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss the next updates. And I will see you in next videos. Bye bye!